Good morning and welcome everyone. My name is Geistberger. I work for AUSSDA, the Austrian Social Science Data Archive at the University of Vienna, and we are a member of CESSDA, the consortium of European Social Science Data Archives. And I'm organizing this webinar series in the Infra4NextGen project. And in today's webinar, you will hear about social survey data curated in the project, about evidence-based policymaking and effective science communication, and most importantly, you will see some very nice examples of policy-relevant research and how it can be communicated. Our invited speakers today are Jakub Adamski, Liva Haque, Danny Heims, Benjamin Müller, and Martin Velichkov. They will present their research examples with Infra4NextGen data and the results from the most recent Infra4NextGen Datathon. Before we start, a few housekeeping rules. So the session is being recorded, but you can ask questions by raising your hand or writing in the chat. And you can, of course, ask questions in between, but we will also have enough time for questions at the end of the session. So what's the agenda for today? First, I will give a short introduction on the Infra4NextGen data available and about the intersection of science communication and evidence-based policymaking. And then you will see the best practice examples of policy-relevant research and insights from the last Datathon by our invited speakers. First, what is Infra4NextGen in a nutshell? It is a 4-year project funded by the EU to consolidate key social science research infrastructures in Europe and make them more usable for researchers, but also citizens and policymakers. It aims to provide policy-tailored outputs of social science data and to lay a foundation for policies along the 5 themes of the NextGenEU program, which are make it green, make it digital, healthy, strong, and equal. You'll hear more about that later. And yes, it is coordinated by the European Social Survey with some other core research infrastructures, like, for example, CESSDA, and many more institutions and universities are involved. So first, it's good to know that all data that Infra4NextGen collects and connects is curated around these 5 themes. Because the data should inform EU youth policy around these topics. Most of them are quite obvious: climate issues, digitalization, health, and equality. The strong theme is less obvious. That is about education, mobility, work, like job security or job opportunities, but also about values and public opinion, for example, views on family or political orientations or trust in institutions. So why do we need data-driven insights? Evidence-based policymaking assumes that there is a way to measure social realities, to build policies that react to these social realities. So are evidence-based policies better than other policies? Because when you think of any political system, no matter what kind of system, often policies are based on ideology. So on what parties think that people want or need. And so the question is, what do we gain by having evidence-based policies? And there is this perspective that evidence-based policies are more democratic because the decision-making processes are representative of and accountable to the people that are actually affected by these policies. And evidence can, on the one hand, be used to develop new policies, but it can also be used to evaluate existing policies and, maybe see what should be adapted. How common is evidence-based policy making? On the European level, there are a few initiatives like the European Parliamentary Research Service Publications and their think tank. Then there is Knowledge for Policy, which is a platform that collects policy briefs by different researchers across Europe on diverse topics. And there are the joint research centers. And for example, Infra4NextGen is working closely with these GRCs, and they offer policy briefs for policymakers to read, but they also offer support for researchers who want to get more into the policy recommendation field, and offer support on how results can be communicated to non-academic audiences. So Infra4NextGen supports evidence-based policymaking mainly by providing the data. So I will give you now an overview of the data compiled in the project and how you can use it. All the big survey programs that you see on the right, so the European Social Survey, Kronos, the European Value Study, and the Gender and Generations program, are also partners of the project. So of course you can use all these studies, but there's more. So there's the Kronos 3 panel, there is harmonized data from different survey programs, and there is a data inventory for items of different surveys as well. And for those who don't want to work with data themselves, there are data summaries and top-line reports that summarize findings around the 5 themes. So first, the Kronos 3 panel. I will not go into detail here, but if you are interested in this panel, there will be a webinar with the researchers who developed it in September. So I'd be happy to see some of you there. Then we have the data inventory. So I think these are two very helpful tools that Infra4NextGen developed. So the first one is the inventory, where you can look for variables, survey questions, or response items across various survey programs. So I'll give you a short example. So for example, if you are interested in equality and income questions, you can type in income here and filter it. Of course, you can also filter it by surveys, by years, or by the pillars. And then you will see all questions that occur in all of the big survey programs to this topic or to this term. And then you will see which survey, for example, this is the European Quality of Life survey, ask these questions in which year, and you know where to look for the data. So it's really a big collection. So when you have time, have a look and play around a bit here. That's the first one. And the second one is the harmonized data gateway. That consists of 3 parts. So there is a variable database where you can also look for data per topic across the survey programs. The toolbox, including harmonization scripts, in case you want to harmonize data from different surveys yourself, and the readily harmonized data sets for each team that you can directly access. So I will also show you this shortly. Here is the variable database. You have all the topics. So for example, in the strong pillar, you can look for democratic participation and engagement, and you have all the surveys and questions around this topic, and you can directly click on the survey or on the year, and it will take you to the data where you can directly access it. There is the harmonization toolbox. And yeah, you can also choose your topic that you're interested in. And here is the readily harmonized data that you can directly access. So for each topic, you have harmonized data from all of these big survey programs. And on top of that, the team that worked on the data harmonization developed an online course that takes you through the harmonization process step by step. So I think Veronica just posted the link to this online course in the chat. Thank you. Okay, so now you know what data we have and what evidence-based policies are. And now the question is how to get from data to policies. And the answer, as you might have guessed, is science communication. Because if scientific findings are not communicated outside of academia, policymakers face the challenge to make decisions without evidence. And of course, it is not only important for policymakers, but without good science communication, also the public might have to rely on misinformation or lacks the knowledge to judge information. And that is why we also try to foster good science communication in the project. So we have made an online training course on science communication that you also find under this link. But also when it comes to the datathons. So Infra4NextGen organizes these datathons, 3-day events where researchers and students work with the data on policy relevant questions and then need to communicate these research findings in a clear and accessible way. So, of course, you can't do in-depth research in 3 days, but we kind of see it as a training for communicating research outputs. And of course, it is an inspiration for more research on these questions. So, a few words about effective science communication. As I said, we made an online course about that, and you can really take that anytime, anywhere, even on your smartphone when you're on the train, as I did with this course. And maybe your institution offers science communication training, and if there is something, then I really would take that opportunity. And yeah, in a nutshell, I think when it comes to science communication, it is very important to know your audience. So you have to tailor your communication to the audience. So if you know who you address, you won't speak a language that your audience does not understand. So I think that's really a key point. Yeah, enough from me now. Let's see the best practice examples. So all of the speakers that you will see now have won first or second prize in one of the categories of the most recent Datathon. It focused on the Make It Strong theme, but of course touched other topics as well. And yes, we will start with Martin. And I will unshare my screen so you can share yours.
Hello, everyone. Just sharing my screen now. So I'm from Bulgaria. I work at the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. And I'm a sociologist, but also a psychologist. And I work also, it's a voluntary function at the Youth Advisory Council at Sofia Municipality. So I'm directly involved in translating science and research into policy. So I really believe this is crucial for us as researchers. And the topic of my presentation, let me see if I can put this away. Is a harder start, generational inequality in first job entry across Europe. So we're looking at the obstacles and differences between generations in finding a first job. And it all started with this meme that a lot of you have seen, how it's much easier now to it's much more difficult now to find a job. Like you need perfect grades, a reference letter, 5 years of experience, and what else. While in the 90s, it was really easy. And we wanted to find if there is any empirical evidence to support this. So our research question was, do young Europeans face greater obstacles in their transition from education to first employment compared to previous generations? And this is directly relevant to European youth policies, because the European Youth Guarantee is the crucial policy that ensures that everyone under the age of 30 receives the quality offer of employment or a traineeship within 4 months of becoming unemployed or leaving education. This research directly evaluates how this policy is doing in practice. So we use data from Kronos. We found that we here looked at the different obstacles that were reported by two age groups, 20 to 34-year-olds and 35 to 65-year-olds. And there were different categories from finding suitable vacancies to high competition, low salaries, lack of network, and higher employment expectations. So the data show that across all obstacles, the younger group reported a higher percentage of this obstacle, and when it was combined, the difference was quite large. So around 63% of young people reported any obstacle compared to 47% of the older generation. So this was based on Kronos data from all these countries that Julia mentioned. In the second piece of data that we looked, this was about finding. This is separated by country, looking at the same data, and you can see that in every single country, the difference between the two groups was quite large. Of course, there are some national variation. Then we looked at how long it took people to find their first job. And here there are 4 different categories, from less than a month to more than a year. And we can see that in the less than a month group, it took longer for young people to find a job. So when the results are summed, we can see the share of population taking 1 month or more to find a job. It was significantly higher among young people compared to the older generation in all countries, except for France, where they're pretty much the same. So this means that young adults also take longer to find their first job. And finally, we looked at the support for equal opportunity policies for youth. So these are policies that exactly aim to make it easier for young people to find their job. And we find that young people think that they have not gone far enough, that there needs to be more, while among older people, there is less support for these policies. So taken together, we find that across 11 European countries, young adults were more likely to report obstacles in finding their first job, and they reported a longer first job search duration. And we also find that existing equal opportunity policies for youth are perceived as insufficient, particularly among young people themselves. And these results suggest a deterioration of early career opportunities over time. Of course, there's a limitation that these reports are retrospectives and are subject to recall bias, especially if they happened a long time ago. But generally, these findings provide empirical support for strengthening the EU Youth Guarantee and for implementing other measures to address youth employment, training, and labor market transitions. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Next one would be Jakub, please.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I am not important right now. So yes, hello everyone. My name is Jakub Adamski, and I've been working on the brief with my colleague Remigiusz Żulicki, who couldn't be here today, but I will be speaking on behalf of our team. We are both sociologists, and we've decided for the last datathon that we will use data from Make It Strong and Make It Digital modules, plus some extension by using European Social Survey data, especially on trust. And here is the title of our research: Critical Thinking, Media and Democracy in an Age of Unchecked Technological Development. And here you can find our full brief with all the analysis, so you can scan the QR code and have full access to it. But in our project, we investigated the factors influencing European support for more training in critical thinking, media, and democracy in compulsory education during a period that we consider of rapid technological development. We see that there is a demand for this type of education because we listen to the public debates across the European Union about the internet and the media and its impact on democracy. And we see that there is a large variety across countries in this support for this type of education. For example, here as a benchmark based on Kronos data is Austria with 73% of respondents supporting increase in this type of education. And what we found out is that the largest per unit impact that is associated with this support is associated with negative perception of technology's impact on society. On society, it increases the likelihood of supporting this kind of education by 67%. But when we consider more incremental changes, we observe that a particularly strong effect is present for education and trust in scientists, and each additional year of education increases this likelihood by 7%, while each step up in trust in scientists increases it by 13%. And so we recommend that we recommend involving scientists and expert communities in public debates on technology and its impact on everyday life, including both and negative examples. I understand that this recommendation may seem simple, but the public discourse on technology's impact is rarely balanced, particularly given the often overly positive narrative promoted by the big technological companies. Next, we see that engagement with social media matters. Respondents who regularly react to social media contents are 44% more likely to support critical thinking and civic education. Here you can see the result. While passively scrolling through social media decreases the likelihood of such support by 25%. So our next recommendation is that access to social media should be limited or controlled among younger children and relaxed over time alongside or following training on how to engage with it safely and responsibly. These limitations may seem radical, but they are already being introduced in several countries across Europe, but we think that they are only half of the equation. They are only half of the solution. They won't solve the underlying problem that people, especially young people, often lack training in how to engage with social media in a safe and critical manner. So interestingly, we observed that support for more STEM-oriented education actually decreases the likelihood of supporting critical thinking and civic education. And you can see that for math and sciences, it is decreased by 35%, while for digital tools and programming, it is decreased by 49%. So our final recommendation is to introduce more critical thinking and civic-oriented training in STEM education curricula to raise awareness of social responsibility related to technology development, and introduce technology-focused elements in civic education curricula to increase understanding of technology's impacts and limitations. And all of these results hold regardless of country context, but countries differ significantly in their level of support for critical thinking and civic education. And here you have interactive graph that you can use to investigate our research further. I will show it to you a little bit. The variables, the factors that I've discussed are these, because they are statistically significant. But we explored a total of 21 factors, and here are examples of those that are not statistically significant. But most importantly, we also investigated the impact of country, and this is these data are relevant as a comparison to Austria. That is our reference category. That, as I've mentioned, is the country with the largest support for this type of training. So you can see that there are basically two groups. Finland, Iceland, and Belgium do not differ that much from Austria. But then again, you have France, Slovenia, UK, Portugal, Poland, Czechia, and especially Hungary that differs significantly in this support. And to finish off the presentation, what are our intentions for the future with this topic and policy? After the last hackathon, we managed to write a paper based on our research. Here you have access to the full analysis and our previous brief. And here you can access our paper based on this previous brief. We will be also present at the 17th European Sociological Association conference this summer in August. So if you will be there, we can meet and have a coffee together. And what's more, we already are working on the paper based on the research I presented to you earlier today. And we will continue exploring both of these topics, both in terms of research and writing paper. So I think that's all from me.
Okay, thank you, Jakub. Well, at least you have a very nice background. And yeah, we're so happy to hear that you continue working on the data and on the topics you explored in the Datathon. So that's what was our intention when organizing these events. So really glad to hear that. Are there any questions on the last presentation or the previous one I forgot to ask? Any questions to the presenters? At the moment, not. Okay. Then now next one is Liva, Haque.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Liva Haque. I'm doing my master's in sociology data analytics at the University of Pécs, Hungary. So in the Datathon, the topic I worked was drivers of the gender gap in STEM motivation, evidence from European countries. So from different studies, we actually see the thing that the gender gap exists in the STEM motivation. So many people or the many studies actually say that the gaps can be due to different reasons, such as the common reasons are economic incentives or opportunities, but there is a lack of talking about the interest gap in the STEM motivation across the different genders. So in this study, I used the data of from the Datathon, mainly the Chronos 301, and the sample was the European respondents, and the data were weighted for representativeness, and the analysis was mainly done in R. So I have used the tools provided in the Datathon. I was a beginner in R and I was just learning it, but still when I attended this event, I actually learned more than what I knew earlier. So it was a new experience for me. So I tried to look that why women turn away from STEM, and why women are much more likely less involved in STEM than male. So there I found that there are different reasons, though the common reasons are like the career prospects, future jobs, high income, job insecurities, and others. But the surprising fact was that the main or the more common reason was the interest. They had a lack of interest. That actually is surprising. So uh, uh, then I tried to look at the data of different countries and whether this is common in every country or just common in one country. But later I found that actually this is mostly common in every European countries that were included in the data set. And in case of Austria, the percentages were really high. So though normally we assume that the gender gap in STEM actually have been existing because of other reasons, but the interest that actually is the primary reason that starts from even before the career decisions can be taken by the children or the students. So the early exposure and socialization can actually shape the STEM interest in among the female students. So maybe the policy interventions should target early stages of the interest formation when the children actually forms interest in different things and topics. That time if we can give them the exposure of STEM and grow interest in them, then it can be happen. Because normally it's really common that there are some gender norms, like if a girl is born and she starts to play, we give her doll instead of giving a ball. So bat and ball is given to the boys to play, and girls are normally considered that they should wear pink and they should play with dolls and other stuffs. And it is common in case of studies also. Sometimes in different societies it is assumed that the students should be basically the female students should actually go towards the arts, humanities, and other stuffs, but they cannot do as good as the boys in the STEM field. So education systems and social environments should actually step the pathways of STEM early. So in case of the datathon, as I had limited time and experiences, I just focused on that two matters. But from the learnings that I gathered from the datathon, I want to include it in my future research. For instance, I want to examine additional social and educational factors that can affect the STEM motivation in case of the genders, and I will try to explore changes over time using the longitudinal data, and also expand the analysis with additional data sets that were available to us through the datathon. So I'm really grateful to Datathon that it gave me a new perspective, and it grew my interest in research more. And actually, I want to now not only see the gaps in STEM, and I also want to see the working attitudes toward women in different countries, and I want to do a multi-national analysis on that regards. So I hope I can do that in future. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for hearing my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liva. And we're glad to hear that the Datathon was inspiring for you and motivating, and that you want to do further research on that topic. Okay, so any questions here? Otherwise, Next one would be Danny.
Hello. Julia, I wonder if you could share my presentation. It looks like I'm not able to do it successfully from my
Yes,
side.
I just wanted to suggest that.
Thank you so
okay.
much.
I have to look for it.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to start again. So I am Danny. My topic is perceived education fairness among young disabled Europeans. This policy brief is essential to understand the patterns and responses of young disabled persons, as they are often overlooked and understudied in research, especially when it comes to survey data. The goal is not to ignore disabled persons in data. My research question is, do young people with disabilities perceive their educational outcomes as less fair than their non-disabled peers, and does this pattern vary across European countries? I use data from Kronos 3 Wave 1 linked to ESS rounds 10 and 11. While there's no demographic variable asking about disability, I filtered the disability variable from a question asking about if respondents were hampered by any disability and illness, and categorized the two groups disabled versus non-disabled. I made 3 charts and figures visualizing data for this brief. The first one, you can see in the figure, disabled youth rate education fairness is lower on average than non-disabled peers. From score 8 upward, non-disabled youth consistently outnumber disabled peers at each level. Almost 33% of non-disabled youth rate education as fully fair, compared to only 22% of disabled youth. Second, I created a COEF plot for the regression model with controls for education. Oh, sorry, can you just scroll up, Julia? Go back up. Back. Sorry, because I'm going to talk about the COEF plot, which is just down a little bit. Yeah, if you go down, keep going, keep going. Yep, it's that one. Yep. Great. So secondly, I'll talk about that one. So this is what I set up for the regression model with controls for education, gender, urban, rural, and country. Disability remains highly statistically significant. A remarkable finding was that high educated youth score points above low educated, meaning that a disabled, low educated young person faces a bigger disadvantage. Country fixed effects are largely non-significant, applying that this is a problem across the EU rather than just a national outlier. And then if you go down, yeah, perfect, thank you. So I'll talk about this one. Finally, I calculated the mean score for both groups and visualized the results using Data Wrapper. As you can see, most of the countries show that the disabled group is likely to rate fairness lower than non-disabled peers. Please keep in mind that few countries have a very small sample size of disabled peers, so interpret with caution. Iceland and Finland have the largest disability gaps, which is fascinating. This leads to the next discussion. We need to oversample and include even more disabled peers in future data. We need this to give a demographic group more attention to understand their patterns and behaviors, so we can push for better policies, including mainstreaming disability in EU education targets, prioritizing accessible learning, and individual support plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Any questions here? One would be Benjamin, but I think he's not here yet. He told me that he can, he's available from 12, so we have a few minutes. So, okay. You can sign up to the Infra4NextGen newsletter to receive info about our upcoming events. To get all the very most recent updates, check the events homepage. So everything under info4NextGen.com. And yes, we have a YouTube playlist on the CESSDA YouTube channel with all the webinar recordings and also other training videos. For example, there is a video series about the harmonization gateway, so about the harmonized data that I mentioned before. And you find all training courses on the website as well. And we have a save the date for you for the next Datathon. That will be in March 2027, so from 1st to 4th March 27. Veronica, anything you want to add?
If we have time, I can also show you one of the resources that is an output of the eNextGen tool. Do you think that's interesting, Julia? I can just show you. You can play around, and as soon as Benjamin joins, you can just tell me to stop. I will share my screen. So in addition to the training courses that we develop, so we have one on open science and reproducible research. We have one on science communication, as Julia already mentioned. And there is one very extensive training course on data harmonization and how to use that to work good with surveys. There are also the other resources that you can discover. We also have the webinar recordings about reaching out to policymakers and other groups, as well as working with R and just learning how to use open source tools. And under the resources tab that I already shared with you, you can see that we have the inventory that Julia already mentioned. You can directly access ESS data portal. Maybe I can also show this, where you can find the data. You can browse by country, or you can also browse by theme. And if you, for example, are interested in Make It Equal, I mean, we're the strong, so make it, let's go to Make It Strong. You can download everything with one click. So that's very nice. And you can see which questions were asked here. And the data summaries, I can tell you a little bit about. So the data summaries are not including the very recent data on from Kronos 3, but they summarize like the last 25 years, I think, of data that is available through the Infra4NextGen project. And the top line reports, in comparison, they include the current data. So these are more up to date in a way than the data summaries, more current.
Okay, thank you, Veronica.
Thank
Benjamin
you.
has arrived. So, welcome, Benjamin. And if
Hi.
you're ready, you can already share your screen and start.
Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Benjamin, and today I will present or do a short presentation on my poster on perceived opportunities for young people to find their first full-time job, and whatever these perceptions differ from socioeconomic backgrounds. Just to make sure, do you really see only my poster, right? That's fine. Okay,
yes.
Good. And that's full screen. Good. Well, this poster was completed as part of the Infra4NextGen Datathon, which focuses on young people's transition from school to work and from youth to adulthood, which is basically happening at the same time mostly. And yeah, rather than actually like studying employment outcomes, I focus here on the people perceived employment opportunities. And these perceived perceptions matter because they influence expectations, confidence, and support for policies in this field. So for labor market policies affecting young people. So the question is quite simple. Do different socioeconomic groups perceive opportunities for young people differently? And specifically, I compare different characteristics, four dimensions here: age, under 35 over or 35 and above, gender, education level, and migration background. And the goal here is to understand whatever these socioeconomic characteristics, social characteristics, are associated with different views on these perceived opportunities for young people in the labor market. The analysis uses the European Social Service, so the ESS data from the Kronos 3, and this data was collected in 2025. The specific question that was asked to respondents is, what do you think overall about the opportunities for young people, 15 to 24 years old, to find their first full-time job in your country? And the responses can range from 0, extremely bad, to 10, extremely good. This dataset contains over 50,000 respondents from 11 European countries. And the overall average perceived perception is 5.74 out of 10, suggesting like a moderately positive view from young people's employment opportunities in these countries that are in the sample. This analysis is descriptive and very simple, and the outcome variable is treated as quasi-continuous. This is not super sophisticated here, but I think it's good enough for what it should do here in this context. And what I did is I compared weighted mean scores across these socioeconomic groups, and I actually tested for statistically significant differences within these groups. So basically here for the age thing, you have below 35, you have 5.63, and 35 and above, you have 5.78, and I tested for this difference of 0.15, and I tested for this statistically significant, if this is statistically significant. So here the aim is really not establishing any causal links. It's more about a correlation and just trying to find or trying to look at different dynamics in these socioeconomic dimensions. Well, the results quickly, starting with age. So as I just said, respondents under 35 have a perceived the opportunities for young people a score of 5.63, and 35 and above 5.78. So that's a difference of 0.15, and it's statistically significant. In the gender domain, males 5.84, females 5.67. The difference is 0.17. Also, this one is statistically significant. For education, we have a difference of 0.15, and again, statistically significant, where the secondary, like highest completed level of education, secondary has a lower perceived opportunity score here. And for migration, it's 0.1, also statistically significant. And here the question was differences, a bit more specific here, differences between people with or without migration background. And the specific question in the survey was born in the country, and yes is born in the country, and no is not born in the country. So here people who answered no, so not born in the country with like some migration background in the first generation, receive opportunities higher than people born in the country. Even though these differences are quite small, we have a large sample size here, so this statistically significant is mainly due to the large sample size. Yeah, and overall, every socioeconomic dimension shows small differences. This suggests that perceptions of young people's employment opportunities are broadly similar across societies, although some groups are consistently slightly more optimistic or pessimistic than others. So even though differences are small, there are differences, and they can be very interesting when looking a bit deeper into these domains. So this brings me to the end. Basically, further research could look into these dimensions a bit more, which is quite interesting. I think compare different countries, look at specific countries, and so on, and examine interactions between these things could be also interesting. Maybe one sentence to conclude. The perceptions of young people's opportunities to find their first full-time jobs do differ across socioeconomic groups, but these differences are generally quite small. And this data provided just an excellent opportunity to explore this question in a large, representative, and cross-national study. So this was a quite interesting exercise, I think, and the data was great to work with. Thanks.
Thank you. Good to hear that the data was great to work with. We'll let the people who collected it know or who developed it. Okay. So are there any questions to Benjamin or any general questions about anything we talked about today?
Rumiana would love to hear that because she's attending today. And she was the academic expert who developed the questionnaire for the Kronos 3.
Okay, if there are no questions, then we're done. Thank you for joining. As I said, the recording will be available on our YouTube playlist, so you'll also find it on the Infra4NextGen homepage, where it will be linked under the webinar recordings. And yes, hope to see many of you at the next Datathon in March. And I wish you a nice summer.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.